Alright guys, what's going on? Welcome in. In this one, we're going to be recapping day 2 of the national team's practice, of course, coached by the New York Jets here. So let's not waste any time. Let's jump right in. So let's start with the tight end position and talk a little bit about Trey McBride, okay? Everybody's favorite tight end prospect. He's the #1 tight end prospect in this class heading into the week, and it was on full display, okay? The weather was not ideal, wind, rain, it was just, it looked like a monsoon out there, but Trey McBride did not disappoint. He looked dependable, reliable, definitely the best out of the bunch that was out there today, moved well in space down the field as a pass catcher, but we knew that about Trey McBride. Of course, 90 plus catches last season, over 1,000 receiving yards, absolutely insane at the tight end position in college. McBride did not disappoint. Okay, and I'm sure you've probably seen the contested catch. I'm sure it's probably floating all around the internet as of right now. Practice just wrapped up like a minute ago here. He leaped over the top, just snatched the football away, landed on his feet, and kept making progress forward. Quick little side note, it was actually a great throw by Kenny Pickett. Again, considering the circumstances, the rain, the wind, Kenny Pickett's smaller hands with the glove, it's a tough throw. He layered it beautifully right over the top, only where McBride could get it. So I think, McBride is just proving to everybody that, hey, he can be that security blanket. It doesn't matter who the quarterback is. He will come down with the football most of the time. There were 2 more tight ends that stood out to me. #1, Jeremy Ruckert, and of course everybody knows his story, being from New York, kind of growing up as that Jet fan. Just an awesome story to now be coached by the New York Jets and potentially be drafted by the New York Jets. He's a good system fit, but I felt like today, Ruckert, although, you look at his college career, the production was never really there just because of the amount of options that offense had, and also the offensive scheme. They really want to push the ball vertically on the outside, on the perimeter, and they, again, have the personnel to do that. So why wouldn't they? But as a blocker, Ruckert is vicious. He is violent. He wants to go in there and make an impact, physically impose his will, and he went out and showed that today. I mean, especially in team drills, man, this guy's just a nasty, nasty blocker. But the cool thing about Ruckert is that he could also hurt you in the pass game, short, intermediate, in the red zone. Ruckert can't help an offense there. He is not some liability. He's truly not. So I felt like Jeremy Ruckert definitely passed the eye test today, again, in the not so ideal weather. And then Cole Turner, he didn't really have any plays specifically that jumped out, but it was just more so his size matched with him moving around, like his route running ability. Not only is he just 6'6" and he's just a monster, but he's athletic, coming off of a season with a ton of production at Nevada. This is a guy who I feel like general managers and coaches would want to get their hands on, especially in the middle rounds, because he definitely has the potential, especially physically, to go out in the at the next level in the NFL and really do some damage. So Cole Turner, Jeremy Ruckert, and Trey McBride all stood out to me. So next up at offensive line, I got to look at Daniel Faalele. This guy was just a brick wall today. A brick wall. Yes, the field was wet, but man, Daniel was just great today, especially in the one-on-ones. Like, nobody was showing this guy up. Nobody, and everybody's obsessed with Daniel's size, his athleticism, or really the combination of the two, what he can do at the next level, what he could be. Really, the main concern is just him being raw as a prospect. So I think this week of practice, and of course the game on Saturday, is going to be big to show general managers and coaches, like, hey, yes, I might not be the perfect prospect, the best offensive lineman in this draft, and I might not be the most polished as of right now, but I can still, being a raw prospect, hang in with some of the best in college football this week. Next up, offensive tackle from Northern Iowa, Trevor Penning, a guy who is shooting up everybody's draft boards. Super, super intriguing guy here because he is so massive. 6'7", I think 340 pounds. The guy is just a freak. He was dominant in college, of course, at the FCS level, so it might be a concern for some, like, hey, strength of schedule, strength of competition, all that stuff, and, there is validity to that. But, man, I look at Trevor Penning, a freak, an absolute freak in the running game, and then to see him today for the first time going up against, the competition that's here at the Senior Bowl, because day one obviously was not televised, I was impressed. I gotta be honest with you, I was impressed. Now, I don't want to make it sound like these, Penning is coming out of nowhere, because I believe it was Todd McShay that had him ranked in the middle, as a top 20 prospect. I think he was 14, 15, 16, somewhere in that range. But man, Trevor held his own out there today, especially in the one-on-ones. One thing that I really liked about Trevor's day today, aside from his play, and this is just coming from a personal standpoint, there was almost a little bit of what would be the word? I guess extracurricular activity, if you will, surrounding Trevor Penning. Like an arm, like just a quick shove or something like that. By no means is it like a dirty hit or a cheap shot or anything like that, but I think it just showed that Trevor is not entering this week with this timid mindset or anything like that. Like, no, he knows he's a beast. He knows he could go out there and dominate opponents, and he wants to make his presence known. And I think it might be a reflection of his attitude, his aggressiveness, and his play style. That is something that I really, really want the New York Jets to adopt for this upcoming season. I don't want teams kicking us around. I don't want teams to bully the New York Jets, and I felt like at times this past season, they really did. Not shaking the Jets captain's hands at the coin toss, constantly hitting the quarterback, whether it was Zach Wilson or Mike White late, like after the whistle, totally blatant, and we didn't really do anything about it. We kind of just let it happen, getting blown out by teams, just New England racking up over 50 points on us with Brian Hoyer at quarterback. Like, we cannot get kicked around. I want guys in this locker room like Trevor Penning that's not going to sit there and take it. Next up on the defensive side of the football, we had 4 guys in the trenches that, to me, just jumped off the screen. Number 1, Logan Hall from Houston, just a big body guy who is violent. He's imposing. You could see his length. Kyron Johnson, the linebacker from Kansas, I felt like showed a lot of power, specifically for his size, so pound for pound, especially when he played low, right? Low to the ground, he had leverage where he was coming up. I mean, I was almost in awe watching that, because you look at Johnson when he's not, in drills or anything like that, and he's not the biggest guy. He is really not the biggest guy, but when you actually see him attack the tackle, I was totally impressed. My jaw almost hit the floor on one specific play. I'm like, damn, this guy's powerful. Another guy, Boye Mafe from Minnesota. I mean, he is totally explosive. He is now stacked 2 really good days back to back. That's really, really important stuff here. But I think the one thing that jumped off the screen at me personally, it always seemed like Mafe was 2 or 3 steps ahead of the offensive lineman at all times. Like, he has a plethora of moves. Like, if the first thing didn't work, he would flip to something else, and the offensive lineman would have no clue what's coming. Okay, so important stuff there. 3 defensive players that shined, but I think the guy that takes the cake, Perrion Winfrey from Oklahoma. I was totally impressed. To me, he was my defensive MVP. Not only does he just possess that size and explosion, but he was making noise in both team drills and one-on-one. When we take a look at the one-on-ones, he was putting in work against Zion Johnson, who a lot of people consider as the second best guard in this upcoming class. I mean, he was making him look silly out there. And then in team drills, he was just all over the place, collapsing the pocket, getting in the backfield. At one point, he had a forced fumble. I didn't think they called it. Outside of his play, you could see him riling up his teammates, talking smack to the offense. I mean, it was just such a fun player to watch. A really, really entertaining guy in Perrion Winfrey, a guy that I definitely want to keep my eyes on tomorrow in the final practice, and of course on game day. And then we flip back over to the offensive side of the football. I felt like it was tough today because of the weather to really gauge wide receivers and quarterbacks, but the one wide receiver that stood out to me was Watson from North Dakota State. We know he's a big guy. We know he can hurt you down the field. We know he has really good speed, but I felt like going into the week, I wanted to see what Watson can do in the short passing game and in the intermediate parts based off of his route running ability. And not so much it was a negative on his game or a red flag, more so just a little bit of a question mark for me, when we're stacking him up against some really good competition here at the Senior Bowl. But I walked away impressed. And then quarterbacks, again, super tough because of the weather. The ball was fluttering. Kenny Pickett, obviously wearing that glove. It was just tough. Guys were dropping passes. Passes were off target. If the weather was better, I'm hoping it is better tomorrow, or at least on game day, where we can really get a good idea, gauge how these quarterbacks can fit the ball into tight windows, deep down the field. I mean, the one thing I will say about the national team's quarterback class, They all kind of have different strengths. I mean, Carson Strong is the big body guy with the powerful arm. Not so mobile. Kenny Pickett is more so the all-around guy of this group. A guy who has, obviously so much production back at Pitt this past season. Height, a little bit of mobility, arm strength, not crazy arm strength, but good enough. Just a huge question mark about the hands, right? The hand size. Will he continue to wear a glove if it's raining? How much production will fall off, which could potentially shove off teams in the north or in the west, Pacific Northwest from drafting a guy in Kenny Pickett. So it's a big question mark there. And then Desmond Ridder, the ultimate leader, just one of Cincinnati's best quarterbacks of all time. He has the height, good arm strength, throws a really tight spiral, which I like, but at times he could be a little high and low. So those were just my takeaways on some of the prospects that stood out to me. Can't wait to hear your thoughts down below in the comment section. If you guys managed to catch it, to watch these practices, please let me know down below in the comment section who stood out to you. So anyway, thanks so much for watching, and as always, go Jets.